people pretending to be offended by things. Like, that's another thing I'm just so sick of. And everybody does this, by the way. Libs do this too, but conservatives are the worst. Like, their entire, like, the Daily Wire's whole existence is like pretending to be outraged about something they're not outraged about. Like, and just as a rule of thumb, if you see a person talking and they say something, and you get super happy that you're going to be able to use that thing against them, then you're not actually offended.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Next Level. I'm JVL here with my best friends, Sarah Longwell and Tim Miller of the Bulwark. Guys, this is it. This is our last pre-election Next Level, and it was my idea that we gate this episode only for subscribers, but then Sarah told me that would be inhuman and a horrible thing to do to
love
you
guys
people.
Too much for that. Okay, but you should be a fucking subscriber.
Be a subscriber.
If you're a Next Level listener and you're not a subscriber, come on, guys, come on, give us a break. I mean, thebulwark.com/subscribe.
Hop on. Now, here's a question. I figure why not ask this now. Should we be doing just a little for the next few days, like an evening Next Level check-in with the three of us for like 20 minutes every night, like 8:30 p.m. in the
I would
East?
certainly do it. I hung out with our subscribers last night and did the pre and what was an impromptu accidental post show after Kamala's speech. And it's great. Hanging out with our subscribers is the best way to get through this moment.
All right. Well, listen, hop into the comments and the chat. And if you want us to do a little sort of nightly Next Level over the next few days, hop in and tell us. Hop in and tell us.
Next Level is another option. Timo's got things to do. Maybe a weekend Next Level. We'll do the best we can.
All right. So we have the tale of two rallies. Our two campaigns have given us their closing arguments. We had Tim, you there on the ground in Madison Square, adjacent to Madison Square Garden, for Donald Trump's Triumph of the Will, in which he, as far as I can tell, made zero outreach. It was basically the national version of Kerry Lake's "Tell the McCain voters to go fuck themselves." Right. I mean, he was saying basically, you know, if you're not with us, we don't want you. We're just going to turn out all of our incels and we'll swamp you guys. And he got 20,000 middle-aged, middle-class white guys to show up for that. And then Kamala Harris went down to the Ellipse outside of the White House last night and brought out 75,000 people.
Feels like
kind of amazing. Sarah, talk to me.
The biggest Ellipse speech ever in
Bigger
history.
than the Ellipse. There was a very large Ellipse speech 4 years ago, roughly. Not quite 4 years ago. But that was still 50% smaller than this.
Thank God.
So, you know, it was this. It wasn't this. It was this.
Got it. Yeah.
You know what was crazy to me is how when she got done with the speech, people dispersed peacefully. They didn't go down to the Capitol and try to ransack it.
They didn't try to take their country back with strength?
No, they didn't smear feces on the wall or put on weird horn
were assaulted
helmets.
Last night?
I don't think a single one, which, I mean, is it really an Ellipse speech if all the cops are okay and treated nicely?
People seem very happy. I don't know if you saw the YouTube video that Sam and producer Sebastian were out there, and there were Bulwark fans shouting at them, and everybody in the video in the background, everyone seems very jubilant. One thing I noticed that maybe explains a lot of this is it felt like there were a lot of gays there, because during the part of Kamala Harris' speech where she's like, we didn't live through Selma, and we didn't live through the Battle of Gettysburg, and she's like listing all these historical things that we didn't live through to hand over to a petty tyrant, and then she goes, we didn't live through Stonewall, and the crowd's like, yeah! Stonewall! And I was like, a lot of gays out there. Like, a lot of the loudest people in that crowd were either gay or allies, we appreciate all of our allies. But Stonewall, big cheer for Stonewall.
I also noticed the big cheer for Stonewall because I was like, how many normies sitting at home? They're all like, what? What happened at Stonewall? Is that a famous general from the Civil War?
Stonewall Jackson.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think Stonewall is kind of just part of the American lexicon.
It's mainstream now, yeah.
I think it's totally, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you had to really be into gay rights to know what Stonewall was. But I think it's now just part of the furniture.
Yeah, the gay agenda has achieved flying colors.
Sorry. Is that good? Does that make you happy or sad? Like it's like your
It makes
favorite
me
band
happy. It
Breaking
makes me
Big?
happy. There's some gays who like to do I was here first and I want pride to be, a counterculture again, and I want to be able to whatever, like have pups running around and, all kind of jock straps. And I'm like, I love Target pride. It's great. Let us take over full dominance. Nothing like what was the Raytheon Pride float. Nothing makes me feel happier as an American than the Raytheon Pride float.
Like, I haven't been to a Pride parade in a long time, but it's pretty much just like banks and
the military-industrial complex.
Defense contractors. They're handing out little bombs that say with rainbows on them. It's great.
You can tell we're all just super anxious about the actual election results, and this seminal podcast, the final podcast for the election, that we're just kind of going to
See, we really should have made people pay for this content. It's what should have happened.
All right, so what did you talk to me about it last night, Sarah? Because I got to tell you, I am feeling kind of hopeful today.
Yeah, I mean, look, I did I did the live stream last night, and so I watched it with our people, and I was sitting there, doing this. I would say if I had to, I've been thinking about the speech. That's me pumping my arms, like I was pumped.
Raise the roof.
Yeah, and sometimes when I get excited, I like you've seen me. I gesticulate. I can't like sit still, and I was
you're like Alex Jones.
She was moving me in that way where I was like, yes, he's got an enemies list and you've got a to-do list. Give me that. I will say the speech was
I'm sorry. Yeah. I have an enemies list too.
I know you do. I know. And anybody who isn't us is an enemy. And I respect the straightforwardness of your priorities. But I would say it was like a little bit like a smile in its, if you're thinking about it like a line where there were these extremely high points at the beginning where she drew the why are we here? Why is this relevant? Why is this, what's the symbolism of this night? There was an annoying siren going off while that was happening for part of it. I think someone was trying to disrupt it. And I'll just say that watching her just like mow through it and not even, I like loved that. Like something about it made me be like, yeah, you're not getting distracted. You are going to hit this mark. And she did. Then she to me, they had clearly been like, look, it's our last chance. We're going to do it all in this speech, right? So we're going to make sure that people know child tax credit, and we're going to build housing, and we're going to cap insulin prices. Although I kind of thought they already did that, but maybe I don't have my policy as correct. But here was the thing about the cheering that I loved. Speaking of Stonewall, but also I think it's amazing when you get 75,000 presumably libs on the ellipse. And she's like, we're going to have the most lethal fighting force. And people are like, yeah. And she's like, and we're going to secure the border. And people are like, yeah. And I was just like, this is, and she's, we are going to be leaders in the world. And we're not going to let these guys push us around. And I was like, man, the world's really changed.
Did the neocons just take over the Democratic Party?
Don't say that.
Yeah, don't say it. But I will say she is, look, man, she's leaning into, I'm going mainstream. And, whenever she does, there's a couple, price gouging or whatever. I'm like, boo. But like, I also just, whatever. The overall speech I thought there was a bunch of new stuff in there. There was some stump stuff in there, but I thought it was an excellent closing argument. And I thought the visuals were magnificent. She looked great. Like she looked ready to do it. She looked like she meant it. I was like, it was like the DNC speech where I felt like, okay, you're getting me. I'm in. I'm roped in. What'd you guys think?
Visuals was great. Strategy was great to do it, to get attention, to steal the attention back from Trump. Any of the whatever navel gazy stuff about should she talk more about it, like all that was stupid. Obviously she was capable of discussing Donald Trump, the threat from looming fascism, and discussing issues that are important to people, that resonate with people. That this is not an either or equation. I agree with Sarah about the smile of the speech. Thought that the first 3 minutes were like really great. Last minute or two was really great. The rest of it was a little. I'm a little bit nervous. I guess I will say one of the things that has me a little nervous is that I think that the Democrats, the Harris camp, and I think part of the reason is you had to do this because of the nature of such a short campaign, and I'd rather this than the alternative. But they might be a little bit prisoner of the message testing complex.
Yeah.
And the message testing industrial complex to me. I just think that the ads and her speeches at times, it's just like, I can tell you exactly. I've read that line in the Blueprint message testing memo, or one of the other fucking groups, the message testing memos that I've read, and you lose a little bit of the magic. You lose a little bit of the the things that Obama could hit at times, the levels that he could hit at times, where you're really kind of stirring the soul. I think that there was a lot of times where souls weren't stirred, but like she wasn't out there to stir my soul, really, right? Like she's out there doing a job. This was a tactic. It was to get attention back. It's to have good visuals. It's to have video they could use for the final weekend of ads. It's to draw a contrast with Donald Trump on his worst day. She did all of that.
And she looked stronger.
She did.
I think, right? I mean, standing in front of the White House with 75,000 people and hitting, the entire speech was the length of a single Trump digression, right? I mean, Trump's windmill, shtick when he goes off script, that was basically the length of this speech. It was like 28 minutes, I think, 29 minutes.
Yeah, she moved
because you can do all of
that,
that, right? You don't need more than that. And
no, I could have cut it down even more. I could have got 22 minutes out of that bad boy, I think, and been happy.
But she looked. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe visuals. Maybe people really are discerning and they aren't strictly ruled by visuals. But in the Trump lizard brain, which is like everything is central casting. Last night was like one of those 90s movies in which Morgan Freeman is the president. Like he just looks and sounds like the president. Everybody can buy it because like she just looked and sounded like a president, right? Standing there in front of that many people wearing that black ensemble with like the white kerchief, like everything just felt central casting for what president is. And I think, and this is what I'm writing in my newsletter today, I think that Trump probably shat himself last night looking at that because that's a language that he understands.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Trump shat himself, but then he changed his underwear and Joe Biden went and shat himself. So I just, I got to tell you.
Talk to me about our greatest living president.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I will then be doing the thing that I don't want people to do, which is let Joe Biden's gaffe, whatever you want to call it, overshadow what was a very strong closing argument. But I can't not comment on the fact that Joe Biden should go away for a second. Like, go do whatever you need to do to president, please. But why are you sitting on like a Zoom as the president of the United States, just like opining on whatever? Stop it. What are you thinking? And I don't care. Watching last night as her speech got overshadowed by a bunch of people parsing an apostrophe on whether he misspoke or whether he meant it. I wanted to do, well, I can't. I was very angry.
You had rage.
I'm livid. I had the white rage, the white hot rage that brings my whole body to its knees.
We should get a punching bag in the house, like in the basement, to just kind of let it out, or like one of those big bags.
Counterpoint. The Biden
There's no
thing
counterpoint.
allowed there to be an extra layer of drama, another hook for people to talk about, and for her to unequivocally distance herself from Biden, which she
I
did.
love this 9D chess take. I really do. Yes, Joe Biden did this last night.
I'm not saying he planned it. I'm not saying he planned it, but I'm just saying, like, when you look back at it,
herself
like,
from
I don't
him.
know.
I do think, first of all, she should throw him under the bus. You want to know what I think her closing argument should be? Should be like, that old guy, I took over. No, I know, Tim. Whatever. This will close me. This will close me. As I want to see her be like, and she did. She was out there this morning saying, I don't think we should ever call anybody in this country garbage, no matter
strong
who they're
disagree
voting for.
from me on that.
I know
I have
that.
to say,
Not surprising.
first
on the
time
Biden
that-
side of this
forbid
one.
you run
it's the
for any
first time
office.
that Kamala Harris has really lost me during this campaign. Like I can abide the price controls. Like, I disagree and so on, but where I hop off the bus is that we can't call people in this country garbage because you know what?
Is this America or what?
I mean, we've seen the people. I watched the video from Madison Square Garden. I'm sorry, some people are garbage.
Yeah. I will. I did a full monologue on this at the end of the Bulwark podcast today, so I could get off my chest what Sarah just did. So people can go over there if they want my extended remarks, which include I'm so sick of fucking flopping like people pretending to be offended by things. Like that's another thing I'm just so sick of. And everybody does this, by the way. Libs do this too, but conservatives are the worst. Like their entire the Daily Wire's whole existence is like pretending to be outraged about something they're not outraged about. And just as a rule of thumb, if you see a person talking and they say something, and you get super happy that you're going to be able to use that thing against them, then you're not actually offended. Actually, you weren't actually offended. You're happy. You're overjoyed. You cannot be overjoyed and offended simultaneously. So, talk about that a little bit, and I also talk about on Biden's fifis, which I cannot do another second of anybody on background to Politico or the New York Times talking about how Joe Biden's whatever feelings or legacy or hurt by whatever she's doing. And it's like the whole thing is insane, and we all need to be grown-ups, and whatever it takes for Kamala Harris to win, we all should do, including him, with nobody's feelings attached to it at all, and especially not the feelings of the President of the United States, who is going to have a wonderful legacy and statue and birthday honoring. Like we don't need to we don't need to get all like, ooh, I don't know, we got to walk on eggshells around. So no, winning is the objective here.
Yeah, especially sorry, JVL, you got to hear a little bit more of this because I will say, watching him do that thing last night, I was reanimated in my rage for the people who also were like, obviously he can be president for another 4 years. Obviously we should. I swear to God, even if she loses, if one person says to me, if it had been Joe Biden, I will lose my ever-loving mind. Like,
stay off the Threads.
We'll have more.
Make sure you don't come to Threads.
Yeah, don't go to Threads. We'll have more acute concerns at that time. So
Yeah,
than
we
that,
will.
actually. So good. I've got
true.
good news for you. You'll have other things to be mad about. But yeah.
So two quick just coda points on this.
Four more
One
quick
is
points. And one more, and one
sorry,
more after
and
that.
another thing. JD Vance on the flopping is the worst of the floppers because this guy managed to do on the Puerto Rico thing the other night or on the Trump rally goes, oh, I didn't hear the joke. And also, we need to be stopped being so offended at everything. He did that just after being so offended by Gretchen Whitmer. I don't know, feeding a Dorito. I didn't quite understand what the thing Gretchen Whitmer did.
The Catholics were flopping on that one. That was a mocking of the Holy Eucharist.
Okay. Well, all right. So JD Vance freaked out about that. Then he said we all needed to just calm down and not get so offended about jokes. And then last night he talked about how this was the most offensive thing that he could possibly imagine. And I was like, you, JD Vance, are the worst flopper of all floppers, including you're a flip-flopper on Trump. And just, boy, do I loathe you with every fiber of my being. Also, but I do have great news. I've got really good, awesome news as a result of this, which is, did Joe Biden, regardless of the apostrophe gate, did he say something deeply offensive? Is he too old to be president? You know what? Great news.
Concur.
This guy is not running again. You do not have to vote for him. He is gone. There is a totally normal lady over there who looks just like a great American president who's talking about being the president for all people, who's talking about listening to voices from others who,
loves the country, loves freedom,
loves the country,
wants to use lethal fighting force.
Yeah, and she is an option. She is an option. These two soup for brain octogenarians, you don't have to vote for either one of them. You can vote for her, and you should.
I mean, that all sounds good, but is she black?
Even better.
Because that's going to be a problem for some people.
Yeah.
Can I just say, again, I don't want to take a position on the Joe Biden statement and the parsing of it, but I would like to go back and defend the honor of Hillary Rodham Clinton, who whatever the
Nailed it with
political
basket
merits,
of deplorables. Nailed
her
it.
basket of
She is
deplorables.
totally correct.
She
about
was
that.
early on this in a way that many other people now recognize. Because again, she didn't say like everyone. She was like, you can separate the Republican Party voters into like three different. There's like the normie types who are about a third, and then the other types, I forget who it was, who are about a third. Then there's this third basket. We're just totally. You know what? I am sorry, but truth is an affirmative defense. And where's the lie? Where's the lie?
I agree. She was right on basket of deplorables. Nailed it.
Guys, that's not the point. The point is when
No,
you're
it's
running
not the
for
point.
office,
Fair.
you should not. And frankly, I think if you're an elected politician, I think if you're president of the United States, the current president of the United States, you should be loath to label any American in a broad brush terms as deplorable or garbage or any of that.
Donald Trump does that literally every minute of every day.
I know, and you know what I think about Donald Trump? I think he should not be the president of the
but
United
we're not.
States.
But we're only talking about political expediency, though, right? I mean, we're only talking about political expediency, not truth.
You're
or
saying
not
it doesn't
truth.
harm him. Then you're talking about
It
the
doesn't harm
imbalance.
him because of the nature of his coalition. Because what
I disagree
he
with that. It
uses
does harm
that,
him.
It does harm him.
I don't. I think that
It
with
doesn't
That's
harm
why
him
he has to.
enough for
wouldn't
our
be able to
liking.
win.
It doesn't harm him enough for our liking, but it does harm him some.
Not as much as it helps him, right? He uses that to turn out his low turn. Sarah, I'm writing a little bit today, and I went to look up your contention about women vote more than men.
Yeah.
And of course you're right, but I didn't realize how right you were. Do you, off the top of your head, know how many more women than men voted in the 2020 election?
I think it's like 55-45.
It was 10 million more women voted than men.
Okay, well, I don't. You gave a hard number. I gave a percentage.
Well,
I don't
that's
know.
more than 10%, though. Well, no, it is.
Yeah,
It's
it
less.
was like 82 million and 200,000 to 75.5 or something like 72.5.
There's just
like
more of
10
us.
million
Yeah.
more. I mean,
That's good.
that's not women have the percentage of voters who have voted for what has been higher in every election since 1980.
Right. But I'll also, and this is where, can I just say that the number that I am obsessed with is the non-college white women in these swing states and how they break. Because for me, that's a Dobbs, J.D. Vance,
Yep.
misogyny kind of thing. And in the crosstab, that's the crosstab number I look at a lot. And Kamala Harris is right now overperforming with those non-college white women relative to Biden, which is that is where, to the extent that I'm being forced to give predictions right now, and I try to defend my feeling that she's going to win, it is those numbers, because you can offset a lot of slide with young black men and Hispanic men and young men in general with sort of like 55-year-old working class white women, because there's just more of them as a percentage.
Yeah, no, that's exactly true. Tim, would you like to share with us a message from our sponsor?
Guys, there's a reason that they put me in the big chair for this ad read, and it's because this episode of The Next Level is brought to you by our good friends at Soul. Let me tell you, when Joe Biden marble-mouthed his way into possibly maybe calling Trump supporters garbage last night and undercut Kamala's great speech, having to watch the CNN segment transition from Kamala's marvelous moment on the mall to dissecting apostrophes, I really needed a gummy. And so that's why I turned to Soul's new out-of-office THC gummies, perfectly microdosed to get you blissed, not blitzed. Soul's new out-of-office gummies are perfectly microdosed with hemp-derived THC and CBD to give any day that chilling on the beach vibe. Did you know you can now buy hemp-derived THC products in all 50 states? Because of the 2018 Farm Bill, which my husband worked on, hemp-derived THC is now legal and accessible nationwide. The out-of-office gummies help you get that much-needed me time at the end of the day or during the day. Well, if you're, don't have an important job like me. They're convenient and delicious. Out-of-office gummies give you that warm, fuzzy, euphoric microdosed feeling without sending you to the moon. You can go for a jog, watch your favorite TV show, or head out to a party, whatever floats your boat. Soul was founded 5 years ago by Mike and Angie Lee. Mike's a former world-ranked professional boxer, and Angie is an author and professional speaker. They have the desire to create natural alternatives to medication that tackle problems they deal with themselves, like sleeplessness, anxiety, focus, and pain. That's not all Soul's got. Whether you're looking for a sleep aid, enhanced focus, or pain relief, Soul also has all your wellness needs covered, and Soul's products are grown right here in the U.S. of A. As for me, we're getting into serious time. It's too serious. It's too serious for me to be hungover. I'm off of drinking. And so the right answer, when you need a little extra help going to sleep, or when you have a little extra anxiety, it's Soul. This holiday season, give the gift of Soul. Head to getsoul.com and use code TheNextLevel for 30% off your order. That's 30% off your order using code TheNextLevel. One last time, getsoul.com and code TheNextLevel for 30% off. Sounds like you needed some Soul last night, Sarah.
Oh, I think gummies are good.
I got an idea for you guys.
Good for you.
Let me just float this. On election night, we will be doing a Bulwark live stream to help all of our friends get through this, and we're going to do one that's just for everybody, for the people. That's going to be open. But what if we did a subscriber only, a members only feed, which is just me on gummies all night long, and I just do it solo. I'm just me in front of a camera.
I couldn't be more supportive of you doing that, JVL. Unfortunately,
You
I'm on
need a gummy,
MSNBC
JVL.
from 2 till 6 a.m. on election night, so I think I'm going to have to be sober.
Do they hate you? Why would you get that? That is a
I
horrible
think they hate
time.
me. Yeah, I think they hate me. Yeah, I do.
Jesus, what a punishment.
You know who else hates Tim? But in a weird,
Anita Dunn?
parasocial way? Steve Bannon.
Oh.
So, Timmy, you went to see Steve Bannon yesterday, and he looks a lot like Jon Voight's character in the movie Heat at this point. The hair is really flowing and stringy now. It's kind of the waves and curl is gone. Not a lot of body to it. He looks like he lost a lot of weight while he was in Danbury.
Yeah, I think that was maybe misleading. I think he might have just lost a lot of weight around his jowls. Underneath the podium, still looking a little thick.
Really? Okay. Because from the sides, I thought, maybe Stevie, maybe the cafeteria food up there was. Anyway, he was bantering with you, and looked like he was just happy to get down in the back and forth of politics again, and get ready for the next insurrection. What thoughts would you like to share with us?
Yeah. Hate is maybe not the right word. I'm very much a frenemy for him. That he sort of needs a foil, I think, frenemy.
Yeah.
He likes to be argued with. You can almost sense it. Like this room, as weird as Bannon looks with the pirate hair and the face splotches and like the 18 shirts, he's kind of like the most normal person in the room, honestly. Like besides like a handful of other straight reporters that are there, like Vaughn Hilliard is there and a couple other reporters, but like the people that he surrounds himself with, like can't even look at me in the eye. Like they're so uncomfortable, and then they have all of the reporters from like Real America's Voice there, and so it's like after my question, and then Vaughn asked some good follow-ups about whether he's talked to Trump. He has. Shocking that Donald Trump is on the day of an
Sloppy Steve. I thought Trump barely even knew his name.
Yeah, he's talking to. He called Sloppy Steve on the black car ride from Danbury down to Manhattan. Apparently, but and watched the War Room according to Steve. But the other questioners are like, "Hey, Steve, it's Harry from Real America's Voice, and I just can you feel the momentum in New York? We're gonna win in New York, aren't we, Steve?" And it's like, hey, Steve, it's Natasha from PatriotNews.org, and it's just like oh, what do you think about the great patriots out there? And like you can kind of sense him getting annoyed by these people, like wanting to be like, I want to fight with Miller again about my crimes. So, the Steve of it, I don't know, is that interesting. I wrote for the morning shots. The big takeaway is not surprising. Like he's not, he's back, getting right back in the saddle. He still wants to do the kayfabe where he pretends to fight with the elites, but he's obsessed with them. Like he shouts out the Vanity Fair cover story on national populism in this press conference. And I'm like, how did you read that? Like, is Vanity
Prison
Fair
library,
going to the
carry
prison
banner.
library,
Isn't
or was like your
Danbury-
first? Yeah, when your first
Isn't that where
thing when you
Martha
got
Stewart
out
was locked up? Like it's
Yeah.
it's not like real prison.
They got Vanity Fair at Danbury, maybe, or maybe they just brought him a stack of his favorite upscale periodicals as soon as he got out of prison. I don't know, but so so that part is like, but at the same time, he's practical. Like when he talks about the race, he kind of sounds like Pluff. Like he's like, it's very narrow, like we need to win, like we need to break the blue wall. He can break the blue wall, but we assess it as a very close race and we can't lose focus, right? So he, for all of his horrible traits and criminality, and the fact that when I said to him later in the press conference, the part that wasn't on video, I was like, you seem like a high risk for recidivism to me. And he basically just was like, yeah. Like, yes, we're going to do this again. We're taking on Pelosi again. We're doing the same thing again. So that part is ominous. The big main takeaways I have, like the real ominous parts, are less Steve himself than like his message to his people, like the War Room listeners, is you need to be prepared to go to jail for your country. And like, taken at one level, that's just kind of like this fantasy, whatever, like craziness. That's like, okay, a little cheeky
Fingers
bluster.
crossed.
Yeah,
I hope
cheeky,
they're prepared to go to jail for their country.
Cheeky bluster on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm like, man, if 1% of the audience takes that a little too seriously, like that could lead to some pretty ominous results. So that's the part that I like. The staccatic element of this is I think one of my big concerns. My other concern is the freaks around him. So it's like that guy Mike Davis, who's like who has been tweeting about how me and Mehdi Hassan are going to go into the women's gulag, and like Jeff Clark is there, listener to the Bulwark podcast apparently. Hey, Jeff Clark, I told him that I thought he should be in jail.
Future Attorney General Jeff Clark.
Yeah, exactly. Oh. And then he's got this posse of little people who are around him trying to tell me to stop asking questions, and the muscle comes over to sit next to me, and it's like. Steve's like, just shut up, like, you little fucking weirdos. But, like, all of them, when they finally got the courage to talk to me afterwards, and I'm having their conversations with them, I mean, they're deep in the sauce, bro. Like, they're deep in the sauce. And, like, they've convinced themselves, like, Mike Davis, for example, has convinced himself that if Trump wins, Kamala's going to do what they did, right? Like, and so they're rationalizing their own plans for nefarious actions by they've all convinced themselves. Like, this was not shtick for me. Like, it was like I'd stayed around long enough, was like listening to them talk to each other and whatever. Like, they've convinced themselves that like the Kamala Nazi thing and whatever, like that the deep state is really coming for them, and that they're going to try to block Mr. Trump's presidential win next time, and that they are going to act extrajudicially. And it's all right. Every accusation is a confession. But like, to me, like, most of the alarming part of it was just like how perfunctory that was. Like that's just kind of how they talk, right? Like that's just kind of how they talk. And the off camera element to me was the part that was kind of raising the hair on my arm a little bit.
Sarah, what do you think?
I mean, the main thing that jumps out to me is the way that Trump has always been like a mob boss. This is very like mob-esque, right? Like, Bannon, like a good soldier. He did his time. He didn't sing to the feds, right? Yeah. He's telling all the other people, sending a message, right? That care about this cause. You care about the, I don't know, mob terms, capo, like whatever. You care about the boss, the godfather, the family, right? You don't, then this is what you do. You prepare yourself to go to prison for the family. And I really agree with Tim that like, it's always where the Trump, the clown with the flamethrower kind of comes together, right? Where it is unserious and performative, and Bannon knows what he's doing. But there are a bunch of guys, it's funny, we got a voicemail the other day at the office, and it was just, and we get lots of these, but it was somebody just saying the F word over and over again, but like would change the cadence. They would just be like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And I got all day. I got nothing to do, bro. So I'm just going to say all day. I'm going to fill up your inbox with me saying, and just went on. And I was like,
healthy.
Well, sure. But it's also a lot of people. He was very candid in the fact that he doesn't have anything better to do. And there's just a lot of these young men hopped up on video games and Bannon's War Room who, this is where, if Trump loses, but it's close, these are the guys who come out of the woodwork. And so it is both stupid, but deeply disturbing.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I had one other analogy that I want to give you besides the mob thing. I guess it's related because there's an Eastern European mob. I meant to get to this with Vindman today on the Daily Pod, and we just didn't have time. It felt kind of like like a Russian bloc press conference as well. Like that we were in Belarus. It's like the man, like Lukashenko's man is out of prison, and he's gathered with him like this like weird cadre of like security and bagmen and like it did not. I'm just like, you're imagining, I don't know who, like Scooter Libby gets out of prison right during the Bush. I'm trying to think of like more up like traditional, like upscale, kind of crimes in the past that have been created. It's like the people around, it would have felt, and they're having a press conference, it would have felt like you'd have the lawyer and the press secretary, and they'd have and this coat on, and it'd be very formal, and it's like we've learned from our mistakes, and we're going to move forward. And like this to me felt like Belarus, which I think is only an interesting insight because if Trump wins, like we might be on the path to Belarus, and I think that it kind of answers the question because I get at this point it's pretty minor, but I do get some feedback from people that are like, why do you give this attention? Why do you give this attention? It's like the freaks in that room are running the government next time, right? Like it would be one thing if it was like, 2028. And Glenn Youngkin is the nominee running against Kamala, and Steve Bannon and a bunch of freaks are having a press conference about how they're going to overthrow the government. It's kind of like probably better just to not give them attention then in that space, But I think that in a lot of ways it's a important insight into where this thing is headed if things go the wrong way on Tuesday.
So that actually segues very nicely into Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post. So I've been kind of on fire on the Washington Post stuff. And
you really have.
Yeah, this is just one of those cases where I see everything much more clearly than other people do, and I'm sorry, it's just the truth.
No, you've been right. You're right. I'm clouded by. I was clouded in this situation. You were right. I was clouded, and here's why I was clouded. I've had a long time bugaboo that I don't think that newspapers should endorse in presidential elections, right? And so like that, and so you're the same. And so like I allowed.
There's a reason the Bulwark doesn't endorse candidates.
Right. I allowed that bugaboo to kind of cloud the clarity that you have had on this. So anyway,
but
continue.
I mean, at the very, very root, and it was a buddy of mine, Topher Harrison, who said this to me, and he's a Russia scholar, and he was like, this is what happens when the oligarchs believe that the rule of law can't protect them. And that's ultimately what this is about, right? So Jeff Bezos is not an idiot. He lives in the world. And he's been looking around, and he has seen that the machinery of the law has refused to hold Donald Trump accountable, and our democracy has thus far refused to hold Donald Trump accountable. And so he's like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm out here on a line, and if the rule of law has failed, then I have to do what I need to do. And this is, Bob Kagan had a great line on the show with you, Tim. He said, capitalism depends on the rule of law. Capitalists do not.
That was good.
Right? That was so good. And so that's exactly what this is, right? I mean, if you're Jeff Bezos, you're looking at guys like Steve Bannon coming out, like, ready to recidivate, or whatever the verb form of that is. And so you do what you do, right? And I don't know, Sarah, did you... I feel you and I haven't talked about this at all. I get the sense that you were kind of like blasé about the Post thing. No,
I'm not blasé about it.
Oh, okay.
I think that the
Tell me what you think.
I think that the pre-surrender is really concerning. I think what I've got is I'm conflicted about the mechanism by which people are expressing their outrage, which is to cancel their Post subscription. And I tend to be sort of like, ooh, I don't love the idea of all these journalists who've been doing some of the best investigative journalism in the country over the last, 8 years, they're the ones who are going to bear the brunt of it. And like 250,000 subscribers is, man, is that a lot of people?
10%
right?
overnight.
Overnight.
I mean,
and
we
so,
understand. I would just say, if I could just, for listeners, to set the table a little bit, like Sarah and I and Tim understand at a very deep level the idea of how churn works and the economics of the business and whatnot. And, publications expect to either gain or lose subscribers who are, in an ongoing relationship with the product at certain rates. To have 10% go away in 36 hours is catastrophic.
yeah,
Sorry, go
although
ahead.
I will say, I mean, this is a Bezos decision, right, to not endorse right now, which means I assume he offsets the loss in the short term. Like, he has more money than God. I do think I saw some commentary about like people telling on themselves when they canceled their Washington Post subscription and not their Prime subscriptions, which I thought was kind of a good point. But I do want to say, screw Jeff Bezos and all the other cowards who are pre-surrendering. Everybody who, and because when Tim says like they're on the line, no, he's not. Nobody has more protections in place than Jeff Bezos.
Said that, not Tim.
Oh, sorry, JBL. Nobody has more protection than Jeff Bezos. Like, the idea that these people who are richer than God, who have personal wealth that is the GDP of a medium-sized country, like, I'm sorry, you think you think you can just, because like, I have always also had like mixed feelings about the idea of a newspaper endorsing, but like the idea of like, well, we've lost people's trust. I mean, to take a paper from Democracy Dies in Darkness, like, to we can't endorse because people don't trust us, is just like they give up the game. Like, don't lie to me. Don't act like I'm an idiot. We know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Right?
It's just pathetic. And I don't like, if you think people are so dumb that they're going to believe that, so your paper's failing too.
You don't buy Jeff Bezos' explanation, Sarah, that he wrote on Monday, where he said it was all, it was just about regaining, it was climbing up a tick on the trust scale. And this meeting with the Blue Origin, it just came out of nowhere. He didn't know about it. Nobody talked with the Trump campaign. It's just suddenly the campaign called Blue Origin that Monday morning, and they threw it together.
You know what I think about this story is that, like, if I let myself feel the full weight of this story, it's like too scary and depressing. Like, I just need Kamala Harris to win. Because every single one of these things that happens, if Trump wins, is a preview of the next level of capitulation that we're going to see. Going back just to one of your newsletters, and also our friend Christian Vanderbrook's been out there re-upping all of these old things from all the anti-Trumpers, or even the pro-Trumpers from 2016. And it's not just that they were opposed to Trump. It's that they were specifically opposed to Trump because he was a fascist or an authoritarian, or behaved in ways that were extra-governmental or outside of his power, or for reasons of conservatism, like he was going to burn down institutions, all that stuff. These folks who now all either sit on the fence or do sort of casual water carrying for him, or like Scott Jennings and some others are now sort of some of his biggest boosters. They sound exactly like us today. They did back then. And I just, the extent to which every election cycle has both been us sort of escaping narrowly from the worst outcome, and has brought, sort of a new phase of political realignment. It's also brought with it new capitulation every time. And this time to see the billionaires capitulating, right? And going from boosterism in the case of Elon to capitulation in the case of Bezos, or sort of sinking to the back like a Zuckerberg. It's really scary. Like, there just aren't a lot of people willing to stand up anymore.
Yeah, my path to Bernieism just gets one tick over every episode of The Next Level, because I did I guess I was doing Nicole's show on Monday, and I had missed that Warren Buffett also didn't endorse this time. And it's one of these things where it's like, kind of, who cares with Warren Buffett on the one hand, but like on the other hand, just the accumulation of all this, right? that we went from a time in 2016 where it didn't work, right? But there were a lot of kind of extenuating circumstances for why it didn't work. But at an elite level, there was like a universal saying of no to him, and the intensity probably wasn't where it should have been. There were a lot of things that explained why 2016 went the way it did. But to have backslid from that, and to now be in 2024 after the attempted insurrection, after January 6th, for them to have weakened their opposition to him substantially. I weakened it is even the wrong word. To have moved from opposition to neutrality across the board. Jamie Dimon, Buffett, Bezos, Zuck, Google. Apparently Sundar and Donald are talking. I mean, it is outrageous. And, when Sarah says the weight of all thinking about it makes her feel too scary for her, like the weight of all of it for me, like makes me just want to be for Bernie. It's just like, actually, I think that maybe we can bring some balance to this situation if we really were planning on doing the tax on unrealized gains. I think maybe for everybody over 1 billion, I think maybe Kamala, we were just joking about that tax on unrealized gains, or that was just some Elizabeth Warren people talking weren't really going to do it. But after seeing how the billionaires behaved this time, I think maybe a tax on unrealized gains for billionaires is what we should do.
But just, okay, so the Bernie thing notwithstanding, the thing is that just, I'm not going to launch into a whole defense of capitalism, but like the reason that they're doing this is because Donald Trump operates in transactional crony capitalism ways. That's it. Right. And so in a normal thing, and the reason they're doing it with him and not with Kamala is because nobody thinks Kamala is going to be retributive toward them. Right. And like,
that's a thing we can fix.
Yeah. Maybe they need a little high heat. Maybe they need a little high heat.
No.
No,
So
I know.
But the very fact that they're doing it is in itself the argument about why Trump is so dangerous. Not just because they can't be there as bulwarks, so to speak, against him, the richest people in our country, to whom this country has given him so much. But it's that Trump's transactionalism and sort of low level menace towards these companies has created not an anti-capitalist environment, but a much more like a Russian environment of patronage.
So what makes me feel a little ashamed of myself here is that I should have realized like 5 or 6 years ago that this is necessarily where we would head. And I didn't. I thought like, well, the elites will stand up because the elites, it's in their best interest because they need a stable order in order to continue making money, right? I just thought like their self-interest aligned with this. And actually history is, as Bill and Bob talked about with you the other day, Tim, this is what happens in every time a fascist movement takes hold within a democracy. The business elites always make their peace with the fascists because that's the only way they can preserve their position in the short and medium term. Like maybe in the long term, like they really need stability, but in the short and medium term, that's not what they need. They just need room to continue operating. And they always do this. And I didn't quite realize that. This is inevitable. And what that really speaks to is a failure of the Biden administration to not go after Trump and Trumpism hammer and tongs from day one. And this is a thing I think we've all had like different opinions at different times in the course of the last 4 years. Like Charlie was always really like, what is Merrick Garland doing? Why isn't he going harder at these guys? I was more of a, no, I like this. We should try to, let the fire die down and, maybe peace will break out and stuff. The answer is that when the good guys control government, they need to pursue accountability to the maximum possible extent. And if you don't do that, that's what creates room for the elite classes, especially in business, to say, oh, well, I have to just go and throw in with the strong man. I don't know. Is that too deep a thought? You guys don't like that.
I don't know. No, I don't. I don't know that it matters. I think with the benefit of hindsight, I was always, as is my wont, usually pulled and pushed between the you and Charlie point of view on that. Like I wanted Merrick Garland to do more, but I also kind of wanted comedy but I like with the benefit of hindsight, I don't really know that would have mattered.
Maybe that's true. Yeah. Maybe none of it matters. Sarah, do you have thoughts? I forget where you were on the question of. I think we all went back and forth on this, right? And ultimately none of us had anything to do with it because the AG is independent and the AG makes his own decisions. But
yeah, I mean, I think for me, I tended to, I lean towards comedy moving on a little bit if you think Trump's going to, exit the stage. I do think, though, I shifted a little bit during the January 6th committee where once they presented all the evidence, there was part of me that was like, wait a minute, you've got all these people? And I think that sometimes for us to make these judgments can be a little hard because we don't know what they have or what, but like the second that the Cheney January 6th committee produced all of this evidence that they were sitting on, all this testimony from Republicans, from people who were with him, and you were like, how is it possible they haven't moved on this? Because it was so much more than just the speech, right? So I feel like I just think the way when Tim says it doesn't matter, having sort of done this podcast with George where we really thought we were going to get somewhere with these cases, and then to have the only one that moved be the Stormy Daniels election interference case, I've actually been really disappointed that the American people did not. The American people, for the guy who's running again, for us to feel like our democracy is functioning correctly, they should have seen litigated and put in front of a jury the question of January 6th and trying to overturn the election and the illegal acts that were in there too. So things like calling Brad Raffensperger and looking for 11,000 votes. But also, before you give this guy access to nuclear secrets again, we should know about the fact about how he so grossly not just mishandled the classified documents, but refused to return them, treated them as his own, shared them with people in ways he wasn't supposed to. If there was a January 6th committee about the documents, I'm sure we would find tons and tons of things, right? Like specific documents that wound up in the hands of people that they shouldn't, or that were very sensitive and they were just sitting around a bathroom. And it feels like our system of justice should have allowed the American people to have that in front of them before this election again.
But this is another case where, again, I think in hindsight, it is now obvious to me, at least, that maximum accountability and maximum aggressiveness on pursuing accountability was the right thing. A lot of people thought that the Alvin Bragg case was like, it's the weakest of the three. And, boy, it's the one that seems the most political. And it turns out, thank God we had the Alvin Bragg case. Because if we hadn't, he wouldn't have been convicted of anything.
Yeah, but does it matter at all that he was convicted in that case?
I think so. I think that he would be in a stronger position right now with no convictions. I think it would be harder to pry those, the marginal Trump voters, I think would be less marginal absent his 34 felony convictions.
I'm not sure. You'd have in terms of the people who are out on Trump, you don't get that many people. I think don't get that many people talking about his felony convictions. I just think that case was not the weakest case, but just the least relevant to the American people from a decision-making standpoint.
Yeah, and I agree. But also it turns out to have been important because without it, we wouldn't have gotten anything. And if you remember, the case was really strong. We all watched the case. We all listened to witnesses. He had the goods, and it was good that he pursued maximum accountability. And if God help us, if Kamala Harris wins, I hope that she pursues maximum accountability across the full
So you don't
spectrum.
think she should pardon him? Because I remember a whole piece you wrote about
no,
how
I
Biden
no longer.
should pardon.
Yep,
No.
I no longer believe that. I now believe that would be a catastrophic decision.
Well, I'll tell you, I was with George at a live event at one point, and I suggested the potential in the service of national comedy, the Harris pardoning him, and I almost got Mike Penced in the room. Like I almost got run out.
Tomatoes. Ladies are taking tomatoes out of their purse.
No, I've changed my mind very hard on the pardon.
Can I give you two? Can I give you two pieces of breaking happy news before we leave?
Sure.
Or did you have another? Do we have another topic?
No, that's all I got.
Arnold has come out of the woodwork to endorse
I
Kamala
tweeted
Harris.
this earlier.
That's good. And just now, new CNN polls out of the blue wall. The last CNN polls from the blue wall. Are you ready?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan, Kamala Harris 48, Donald Trump 43. Wisconsin, Kamala Harris 51, Donald Trump 45. Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris 48, Donald Trump 48.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good.
Tied in Pennsylvania. Is that
tied in
good?
Pennsylvania's not good, but hey, going to bat, as I've said on every podcast, and JVL quoted me saying the other day, I don't like going to battle where Donald Trump has 3 outs. I'll feel much better if Michigan and Wisconsin feel stable and we're fighting for Pennsylvania. That's better odds for Kamala Harris. So that's a
Do
winner
they
for
only
me.
have blue wall states? Do they have Nevada in
Just
there?
blue wall. Where are you? The only the only thing that makes me a little disappointed about this is at some level, if Pennsylvania and Michigan were the ones that were looking good, Wisconsin leaves Kamala with another out of North Carolina. I think I've continued to be I feel like North Carolina could be winnable for her.
Maybe.
And,
I think North Carolina is really tough to pin down now.
Yeah.
Ever since the storm, like I think a lot of people left. I think people have feelings that are incredibly localized, both around Mark Robinson, but also around how FEMA and, they got both flooded and then flooded with disinformation. Like, who knows what that's done to people? Has it made them more likely, less likely? I couldn't possibly say.
All right, final
How you
temperature
feeling?
check. Final temperature check here for the three of us since this is the last next level.
I thought we were
before the
doing these
election.
nighttime things. Or
we
something.
are. Okay. Well, I
Maybe.
didn't realize that was decided, so we won't do a final temperature check.
No, we can't. I mean, we can. I
Good
think we can do
show.
a broad one.
Okay. It's been a very long show, but if you would like to do it, you can do it.
I think that, and I've said for a long time that I think it's really important which way the independents break at the end. I see a lot of people constantly arguing, who is undecided? How could anybody be undecided at this point? But the fact is, I can't remember if we were all talking about this at some point, but at the end of Hillary Clinton's campaign, she got the Comey stuff. She had that flu. I think, Biden had independent, and so independents broke for Trump in 2016. In 2020, they broke towards Biden. I think because of COVID and because of, people were just sort of done with Trump. And I think the question now, right, is like, which one is the incumbent? Like the independents have broken away from the incumbent both times. Or I think Hillary Clinton was like a third Obama term to the extent. So, and this time it's like, well, who is the incumbent? Which way are independents going to break? And I just think that going back to the top of the show, Trump's closing argument, he stepped on his message, got messed up, 450,000 Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania, Bad Bunny. Like he's had a lousy last week. She's had a stronger last week. Biden would get out of her way. And so I believe independents are going to break for her at the end, including women.
Tim A?
My palms are literally sweaty. It's not an Eminem reference. My palms are actually sweating right now just talking about
Knees
this.
weak, arms are heavy.
Yeah, there you go, Sarah.
Sarah. Hey, well done.
B Rabbit. I fucked up. I'm about to fuck up again. When I was with Mallory McMorrow, I gave the incorrect name of where they have the rap battles. It was the Shelter, and I called it the Chapel. Which really, I felt like really was a neg against my 8 Mile reference capabilities. Anyway, I just my vote. My view hasn't changed for a month, and I don't think it's going to change till next week. I think she has a narrow lead in those 3 states. I think she can win North Carolina. She can maybe win Nevada. I think there's an outside chance that I do think there's poll hurting. I think there's an outside chance that there could be a polling error of like 3 points. But I think it's probably more likely that it's in her direction than his, but it could certainly be in his direction. And I think we're going to be sweating it out. The only that I've gotten a little, I like the fact that Georgia has fixed the counting speed is super important, because I think we're going to know a lot more on election night than I thought we would. So that's my temperature check is a little bit down on that. I think it's going to take a long time to count some of these other states, but if she loses Georgia by 1 and she did really well in the suburbs, like, that's bad to lose Georgia, but you can still start to feel pretty good that things are going to break the right direction in those other states. Actually, we won't do the other alternatives. So I think that I'm feeling a little bit better about that.
All right, it's been a good show.
What about
a long
you,
show.
JBL?
Maybe we will be
you're
on
the worst.
Yeah, that's right. I am the worst.
Weekend. Keep an eye for it on the weekend. Maybe you guys, it's a secret bonus, but I'm on a flight tomorrow night, and I can maybe do it Friday, but
Well, maybe
we'll talk
Sarah
about
and
it.
I
JBL and I are going to do Secret Friday.
Maybe
I
Sarah
do.
and I will do a little check-in tonight. Maybe we'll do a little check. Maybe it'll just be like bedtime, after dark with Sarah and JVL, and we just 20 minutes,
the stuff of my
quick
dreams
20-minute
here.
vibe check. Yeah, well, you and me both, guys. Good luck, America.